Oral arguments just wrapped up at the Supreme Court in the landmark birthright citizenship case. The justices are now weighing whether President Trump is in fact allowed to limit the constitutional right, as he tried to do on day one of his second term. Trump issued an executive order upending the traditional understanding of a provision of the 14th Amendment that provides citizenship to all people born in the U.S. The order was immediately blocked by courts around the country and has never been in effect. But today's hearing has attracted national attention, with people traveling to Washington, D.C. to protest outside the courthouse. The president himself even showed up to listen to oral arguments, making him the first sitting president in history to do so. NBC News Chief Justice and National Affairs correspondent Kelly O'Donnell joins me now from the steps of the Supreme Court. Kelly, I have to ask, based on the questions they are asking, which way does it appear the justices, just at this point, seem to be leaning?
Well, it is a puzzle at this point because we can only try to discern based on their comments in the court, the questions they're asking, the issues they raise. It gives us some window into their thinking, but it is not the complete picture yet. And at this point, it does appear there is deep skepticism of the president's plan to restrict citizenship. That's based on some of the interaction where they were questioning the Solicitor General, who represents the United States, before the court was defending the president's policy idea, and how they also addressed questions to a lawyer for the ACLU who is representing the petitioners here, including a woman who is a Honduran national expecting a child, representing a group of people in a similar group of litigants. And those issues really come down to the sweeping nature of this. This would be a dramatic change on the definition of who can become a citizen. The law already allows for anyone born in the United States to be a citizen, with a couple of very clear exceptions. Children of ambassadors, foreign diplomats who come here, they're working for their home country. Citizenship is not conferred on their children. What the president is saying is if you're here illegally, if you're here on a visa, you would not be able to extend citizenship to the babies born to those individuals. What it doesn't do is say that if you're in the country with a green card, for example, that would apply to you. So it's not all foreign-born people who are not citizens with respect to their children. It's those who are not in the country legally. That's a very narrow thing, but a very broad way of changing how the 14th Amendment would apply to the definition of what it means to be an American.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.